Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now we'll be diving right into our discussion segment, and your opinions set the stage for a deeper discussion today. We've heard your thoughts and opinions during the phone-in conversation. Now we focus on the election reform saga, a controversy that continues to spark debate nationwide. The Senate recently amended the Electoral Act 2022, removing the phrase real time from the clause of electronic transmission of election results. Now, critics argue this weakens safeguards against manipulation, while supporters say electronic transmission itself remains intact. Now, pressure is mounting from civil society, labour groups and concerned citizens, who warn that any dilution of electoral safeguards could undermine public confidence ahead of the 2027 elections. Now, protests and demonstrations, including the recent Occupy the National Assembly movement, highlight the high stakes involved. Now, joining us in the studio to unpack this issue, Comrade Ben Upah, Acting Secretary of the Nigeria Labour Congress, who will offer insight on the Labour perspective, and Umar Mohammed Dan'sabe, Senior Program Manager and Head of the Democratic Accountability and Elections Program at Kimpact Development Initiative, who will analyse the broader electoral and democratic implications. Now stay with us as we examine what this amendment means for Nigeria's democracy, how citizens' voices are being heard, and what lessons can be learnt from the ongoing debate on election reforms. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, we have seen what is really going on. Everyone is going, I would say, haywire due to the changes that have been made in the Electoral Act 2022. Now, one of the main focus is real time, which was attached to electronic transmission of results. Now, I'll start with you, Mr. Dan'sabe, as someone that is in a democratic accountability and elections program. Now, what does that mean when it comes to the credibility of results? As Nigerians, we know, are usually skeptical when it comes to credibility and transparency of elections in the country. Now, removing that particular real-time in transmission of results would automatically make Nigerians assume that there wouldn't be transparency in those results. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear viewers. You recall that in 2023, Nigeria had, one of the most keenly contested election, where away from what we used to have, where it's usually like a 2-horse race, we had a 3-horse race, in 2023. And the reason for that is not far-fetched from the introduction of technology to the process. That built citizens' confidence and trust in the electoral process. And the technology I'm talking about now is the introduction of the BVAS machine, at the same time the high-rev technology, which is the result viewing portal. That's, built citizens' confidence in the electoral process, and young people who ordinarily would be busy playing football on election day turned out in mass, to exercise their franchise. But as that election concluded, the hopes of, citizens in that election, with hoping that the introduction of technology would, would ensure that their vote counts. Especially when it comes to the presidential election, that hope was dashed. We got, for the very first time, we got citizens following through the electoral process from the pre-election to election phase and even to post-election. And you recall the all eyes on judiciary, slogan that was everywhere across Nigeria. For the very first time, Nigerians became very much interested in post-election process. So, and what was their hope, when it comes to this? They wanted to see the position of the court, as regard the introduction of this technology, which has built their interest. Alas, the court said the introduction of technology is just a matter of policy of INEC. It is not in our laws. That's the reason why, you know, putting this particular clause in our Electoral Act is very, very paramount to ensure that, you know, this is not put at the beck and call of INEC, but that it is mandatory that they transmit and it becomes a part of, you know, the electoral process. It will build citizens' trust. It will build citizens' interest. At the same time, it will ensure that our elections are free, fair, and credible.
All right. I would like to actually hear your perspective, Comrade Ben Upah, on this. Now, having that particular phrase, I would say, or clause taken out, what does it say about those people responsible in, you know, representing the people, and what does it say about how it will pan out when it comes election day?
Yeah. It amounts to legislative arrogance and insensitivity to have removed that clause, retime, and to hear the leadership of the Senate say that they cannot be cowed into putting it back. It is important to let the Senate leadership and senators know that they are there at the pleasure of the people, and that if they have elected to make the Senate irrelevant, we will push for its scrapping. We have watched with pain over the years as the political leadership, our political leadership, as they choose to fail, the will to fail. They never have worked to make our democracy work. At each corner, at each bend, at each opportunity, they work towards its subversion. And yet, that the primary and secondary beneficiaries of our democracy. If they no longer want democracy, why do we have to waste public resources maintaining the parliament? Particularly the Senate that is obdurate on this matter. So the issue is this: making electronic transmission real-time of results a discretionary matter for INEC has since proved to be a folly. My co-panelists have just put it succinctly. You know, we're all witnesses to what happened in 2023. It's so fresh, and Nigerians now say, as much as possible, minimize the risks, close the gap, and ensure that their votes count. That is all that we're saying. If this is not done, I want to tell you the degree of apathy that you are going to witness on election day. They might even have to beg people to come and vote because nobody wants to go and waste their time.
All right, Comrade Ben, one of the reasons the Senate President gave as to why that phrase, you know, real time is being taken out is because they want to give INEC a flexibility, or rather the flexibility to, you know, conduct the election in places where there is no network. And Nigerians are saying that that particular statement, that particular comment from the Senate President is just, you know, an excuse not to give Nigerians access to benefit the dividends of democracy by, you know, transmitting these results electronically, excuse me. So do you see that as a reasonable and safety measures, being that I mean, you don't
Maimuna, I'm not going to wait for you to finish your question. First and foremost, it is a crime against the people that some of them have been excluded from access to the internet over the years. They never thought of that. If that is the case, what does it cost to put internet in place between now and 2027? To tell you the duplicity in that argument, when it comes to writing school certificate examination, they compel our children to do computer. Even when they know there is no internet in that place, they compel them to do all these things. So that is no excuse. The intention of not putting real time is to legitimize the commission of a crime against the people. That is simply the intention. Some of them, some of the people in the Senate are beneficiaries of this electoral fraud. Some of them never got the true fair and fair election. So why would they want a free and fair election? So, but we are insisting that that must happen.
All right, let's go to Mr. Dan'sabe now. Looking at what is going on, a lot of Nigerians would ask, like, is this reform about strengthening democracy or about reshaping the electorate before the next election cycle? And who does this benefit immediately if this bill passes? The voters, institutions, or the ruling party? I'll like to, but I'd like to hear from you as well, because this could have different perspective.
So the question is when it is passed the way it is, or with the real time?
With the change that they made right now.
So Mr. Ben had mentioned that the people currently considering the law are the direct beneficiaries of the inefficiencies of the 2022 Act in 2023. And you would agree with me that once you benefit from a situation like this, you want it to continue. And the excuses they are giving, to me, I feel it is funny because there are data to back real-time transmission. And I will tell you, in 2023, only presidential election results had glitches. The House of Representatives and the Senate.
They claim
yes. So that's what they told us, so that's what we'll go with, right? The House of Representatives and the Senate was transmitted. And immediately after that election, in less than 24 hours, 90% of results across the senatorial and both the House of Representatives election that took place were on the IRF. 90% in less than 24 hours. In Edo and Ondo off-cycle election, less than 24 hours, 93% was on the IRF. In the just concluded Anambra governorship election off-cycle, 98% result was on the IRF, less than 24 hours.
Do you think that they've looked at those statistics and understand that it is very possible to be able to do a real-time electronic transmission of results?
I'm not sure. I mean, we are talking about lawmakers that are taking decision, budgetary decision of a country that have not carried out census since 2006. How are these lawmakers taking decisions on behalf of Nigerians? Data is very, very key to every decision that you take. You are budgeting for Nigerians. You don't even know what's our population. So how are you taking that decision? Talk more of electoral reform. I'm not sure those people are interested in research or data-backed, decision making. They are not interested. Even if you present them with the data, they will still come up with excuses to tell you that of the 98%, the 2% in Anambra is very, very key. Considering that in less than 24 hours, you don't need to rush to the gallery to announce results. You don't need to rush. There is need for the entire process to complete. And this Beavers machine they talk about, I'm not sure there is anywhere in Nigeria where there is no network and you travel for 5-10 minutes across network. And if you have used the Kobo Collect app for data gathering, you know that in real time you can gather your data even without network, upload, and it will be hanging. Once it gets access to network, it will send. These are very simple, ideas that have been in existence for so long that our lawmakers are not looking at. They know all this. Believe me, they know. But what benefits them is what they want to do.
All right, now, as Mr. Ben Upah, as we've heard, the intricacies of how transmission goes on, the network issue and all of that. At this point, even from 2023, do you think that all these reforms that have come in are only in the benefit of those that it's going to benefit, instead of it benefiting Nigerians for them to have a free and fair elections, with which they've always had skepticism about the electoral process?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, let me say that the intention of the reforms is noble. And some of these reforms put in place by INEC are intended to achieve credible results, to make people feel being part of the process, citizen participation in democracy. However, as I said earlier on, our drivers, or some of our drivers, are not on the same page with the latent spirit of reforms. And so for every reform, they design a strategy to subvert it. And like ordinarily, if the intention, if they had meant well, even the Electoral Act 2022 would have sufficed. But in the spirit of crime is always ahead of the law, it has become very necessary for us to amend the 2022 Electoral Act to, as much as possible, reduce the opportunity for any criminally minded politician to exploit. So generally the reforms have been well intended. But then also we should speak to this fact. Why is it that it is Nigeria that is regressing in our journey in democracy? Look at Ghana here. Transition, peaceful transition, effortless transition and transmission of power. Why is it that it is us who choose to fail? So if we no longer want democracy, we should say so, because it costs a lot of money, resources, to maintain democratic institutions. Political office holders, politicians, parliamentarians, to show cause why we should continue to maintain this democracy.
All right, Mr. Umar, I mean, the lawmakers say that, INEC should decide the best way to, send results on elections, election day, excuse me. Now, do you trust that level of freedom, or should the law be clearer so, officials can change things halfway and see how they can go around it, just so in case they would have issues on that day?
I was going to respond to the question you asked about flexibility. For me, I think flexibility is which the lawmakers use as their yardstick for taking out the phrase real time. Is like a pass to do whatever you want. We are talking about the same INEC that has not been able to explain what the glitch in 2023 was. We want to trust them with decision about transmitting result.
Discretionary.
We are talking about the same INEC that would go to court and
Witness against.
and stand with the defendants in an election petition tribunal case. So for me, I think the electoral institution, if you allow them, that discretionary position, then it's not tenable in the court of law. That's the major challenge, right? So because it is not in our laws, the courts cannot take decision based off of what is not in our laws. So, and that is what we've seen in 2023, election petition tribunal, where the court has said, these things, we can't manufacture the law, to take the decision. It's not in our laws. So, this automatically takes out, the idea of discretionary decision making for INEC. And for me, I feel the Nigerian Senate, to be precise, they are very, very sure of what they are doing. They know what they are doing. They don't want this thing to work. The campaign that you have seen taking place even before this decision was taken, it's for a purpose. You see people decamp from political parties to the APC for reasons that they can't substantiate. And you keep wondering, what is the issue? My major concern is, if you have this much of political heavyweight in your political party, 30 governors to start with, and more than 3/4 of the Senate in your kitty, why are you scared of free, fair, and credible
elections?
All right. Comrade Upah, now at this point we have seen protest over these amendments that have gone on the electoral amendment bill. But at this point, what do you think, or how does the Labour movement view these amendments, and what role can the Labour play in advocating for transparent and credible elections? Now, so far from 2025 all the way till now, we have seen a lot of protests that have gone on. And does this really translate to so much frustration that Nigerians do have? And at this point, how does this translate to what Nigerians think about the electoral process?
Well, I'm here with our statement against the intention of the Senate. The statement is entitled, "The Senate must come clean now. Electoral integrity at stake." I can go through it. The Nigerian Labour Congress expresses deep concern over the confusion and contradictory narratives emerging from the Senate regarding the amendment to the 2020 Electoral Act, particularly on electronic transmission of results.
Or you could give us a bit of a summary of
yes,
what
because
it
of
is.
So
time.
the thing is that we have said the Senate must come clean, and we demand immediate clarity and transparency of purpose. And that the Senate must restore legislative credibility by ensuring that its processes are transparent and its outcomes clear. The amended act must provide an unambiguous mandate for INEC to electronically transmit and collect results from polling units in real time. And we also issued a caveat that in the event the Senate fails to do this, failure to add electronic transmission real time will lead to mass action before, during, and after the election, or total boycott of the election. Our nation must choose the path of clarity and integrity. So our position is very clear. We will do action, and let me just add this. I keep saying this. The Parliament is the only institution that makes a difference in a democracy. The executive has always existed. The judiciary has always existed. It's the parliament.
Even in military regimes.
So the parliament must take a decision today whether it can create value around itself. If it can no longer create value around itself and wishes to self-immolate, so be it.
But Comrade, let me ask you, if the public mounts enough pressure on the National Assembly, do you think that this can be changed?
Well, let me tell you, in a sincere democratic setting, you don't need all of this to do the needful. The Senate didn't need this street show to do the needful. Even from the pit of their stomach, they ought to know what is reasonably right. But now look at the regular social media, look at the streets, everybody is protesting. It is only a few of them there in the Senate, beneficiaries, serial beneficiaries of crime, who are pushing this agenda. It's not every senator. Do you understand? So they have to do the will or the wishes of the people. If they are representatives, except they are representing themselves. If they are representing their constituencies, then they should do the will of their constituencies. That is why I keep harping on this issue, that when a parliament, or let me be specific, because the House has passed it, and kudos to the House. Yeah. So let us not lump them together. So if the Senate, at this momentous time in history, chooses to make itself irrelevant, so be it. This country can exist without the Senate. In any case, people have been pushing for a monocameral system. We can do without the Senate. That will be the next shift. If the Senate will be so insensitive, so implacably arrogant, and incessantly cruel to the point of telling the people, go to hell. We want to tell them to go to hell.
All right. Mr. Dan'sabe, now looking at what is going on at this point, and without any revision, if this continues, or what do you think the implication would be on the electoral process now, let's say going into 2027, without the real-time transmission or any electronic transmission of those results? And where do you see it taking us in the future?
Unfortunately, whichever way it goes, if they fail to pass, it will still favor them. I mean, that's the reason why they are doing this. Currently, the citizens' trust in the electoral process is very low, very, very low. I mean, I was following your program downstairs. Before I came up, I think I heard callers call to say they won't waste their time going to exercise their franchise. Even while coming to the studio this morning, I was listening to radio. Nigerians keep saying they won't come out to vote. And the more Nigerians decide to boycott the process, the more it becomes beneficiary to them. I mean, they will be able to do whatever they want to do with the process and perpetuate themselves into office. However, we are gradually moving towards a one-party state, a fiefdom, where a very few set of people who hijack power and just continue to remain in power decide, what happened. So if this particular situation where we are now doesn't change, I think for me, it is just like a free pass into every other thing other than democracy, because the will of the people must prevail in a democracy. And the people have come out, to protest, to make their position known. The people also put in place, these amendment bills that are currently before them. And they sat down without consultation with the people. I've not seen one senator who has returned back to their constituency to say this is what is before, the Nigerian people. tell me what is your own position so that I can put it forward.
Okay.
Before the House.
Well, I'd like to speak on this. Yes. For me, election is one of the strongest, one of the most important legs of popular democracy. Once you eliminate election, once you take it away, you have taken out popular democracy as we know it. And so, if the Senate, in their self-righteousness, or if the certain elements, because at this point in time it is important to also begin to distinguish between those who are pushing for the inclusion of this of real-time transmission and those who insist that it must be excluded. So if those who say it should be deleted eventually prevail, I want to tell you, it will be the beginning of the death knell of our democracy. And I'll tell you this, check our history from the First Republic to today. No single person, no single leader has prevailed over Nigerians. The beginning may be temporary victories, but the end, ultimately, Nigerians win, Nigeria wins. I have no doubt, and my trust is in God.
All right, Comrade Ben, the Senate reconvenes today concerning this issue. I want to hear your view coming from a Labour perspective. If at the end of the day, after the sitting, they still insist that the transmission of these results will not be done electronically, do you think that Nigerians should continue to protest down until when, they decide to make up their mind to do the needful at the end of the day?
Without equivocation, Nigerians should continue to protest. If the revisionist wing, the reactionary wing of the Senate prevails, Nigerians are at liberty to protest within the limits of the law. Yes, that is allowed.
All right, Mr. Dan'sabe, now looking at all the changes that has been made on the 2022 Electoral Act, Amendment Electoral Act Bill, we've seen the major attention be on, the rejected mandatory clause of real-time electronic transmission. But there are other changes that have been there, just like Beavers versus Smart Card, like the new bill officially replaces Smart Card readers with a bimodal voter accreditation system. We have voter identification, where lawmakers have rejected the proposal for electronically generated voter identification, and the permanent voter card remains. We have election notice timeline from 360 days to 180 days, and we have early voting as well for essential groups such as security personnel, journalists like us, as well as whose duty prevent them from going out to vote, as well as other stiffer penalties. We've seen these changes might be of an advantage when it comes to the electoral process, but the main focus is on this particular real-time clause. Now, looking at those changes that have been made, that Nigerians seem to accept it wholeheartedly in relation to the real-time clause that has been they've adamantly refused to accept. How would you measure the advantage when it comes to those other amendments that have been made to this particular one on a scale which is more important to have a focus on making sure that Nigerians are at home with the electoral process?
So if you look at other recommendations that are before the National Assembly, It's meant to strengthen the process, to improve voter turnout, to lead to inclusion. Just the way you have reeled it out, if you look at the, aspirations behind those introductions, basically is to ensure that our electoral process is more inclusive, no person is left out, vote buying, electoral offenses, you name it. But the reason why the electronic transmission takes the front burner is that while others try to bring other people in, the electronic transmission ensures that the vote of the few, the 23% in 2023, the sanctity of that vote remains. So the few that comes out to exercise their franchise, their votes counts.
All right. Now, quickly before we go, I believe we've run out of time. I'd like to hear your final thoughts. I'll start with you, Comrade Upah.
Thank you very much, Howard. My final thoughts are this. When democracy flourishes, politicians are the number one beneficiaries. Citizens follow a distant second. When democracy fails, there are consequences for everyone. But the first victims are the politicians, they themselves. So my word of caution to them is that remember that. Read your history. Know their history. Protect our democracy. Make us proud as Nigerians. Thank you.
All right. To you, Mr. Dan'sabe, I'd like to hear from you.
My final word will be that democracy is the will of the people. The people's will always prevail. All we need to do is to keep engaging. If it requires to protest, go out and protest. Your lawmaker may not be living in your constituency currently. I mean, they may be in Abuja. You can play your own role by going to their houses, knock their gates, and tell the security man or whoever comes to receive you that you want them to pass the electoral amendment bill, just the way the House of Rep has passed. Imagine 3,000 persons going to the houses of the senator in their various constituencies, knocking their door. The information will definitely reach them, and they will know that the people's will has risen. Continue engaging, call them. You have their numbers, call them, send them text message, reach out to them anyhow you feel you can reach out to them. If you can't go to their houses, they belong to political parties, go to the party secretariats and make your position known as citizens. It is your right. You can do it.
All right. Thank you very much, Comrade Ben Upah and Mr. Umar Mohammed Dan'sabe for being here and shedding more light on what is going on when it comes to our electoral reforms.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I hope the citizens have access to the residencies of their representatives.
All right.
Yesterday, you couldn't even read the national assembly. Right. In your numbers, they blocked you.